This old commode came out of a garage. It's one of those two-piece commodes. That's the bowl. This is the tank. As you can see, this doesn't connect to the commode. You have to use a pipe because this is what they call a wall-hung commode, and it's got the old ball cock in there, standpipe. Of course, this used to be copper. Now it's all plastic. But anyway, well, where I'm going with this is the wrench that's used to undo these nuts here. And as you can see, it's pretty dadgum rusted up. So I've got it pretty well loosened up, but this bolt here that lets these jaws slide back and forth, it's rusted up, and I got to change this bolt there. Got a wing nut on this side. Okay. You can see for this nut and of course the tank nut. First thing we're going to do is take this one off. First, there's a rubber O-ring in there you need to replace. This one here we have to back off. This is the same thing as the one we just took off the tank, because this goes onto the bowl, slides in there, and I'll show you here in a minute. And then you tighten this up, and this has got that wedge rubber gasket, so the more you tighten it, the more it tightens up against the bowl. You can see how it's, well, of course you can see better once I get it off. This is flared on the end. You can see the inside, it's flared. Okay, now we've got this, I have no idea what you call this thing, but this is the part that goes on to the back of the bowl. I'm fixing to show you, and it's got that nut on there, and this is where I just showed you it had that flare on this side, so that as you're tightening this up, this rubber gasket seals against the bowl. Okay, well, this is the side of the commode, and of course this thing sat outside evidently for a while, froze up and cracked the bowl, so it's not any good anymore. But in any case, this piece I was just telling you about, this is the one that slides into the back of this, and we're going to take off this rubber bushing and see if we can save it enough to at least get it on there, because this has to go on before you can actually mount the commode to the tank that's hanging on the wall. Okay, you can see what I'm talking about, how it's flared up. And then if this was a new bushing, this wouldn't be flared out like that, it would be straight. And so that the more you tightened it, the better seal it's got. Alright, let's go put this thing on the bowl. Yeah, one thing I want to show you, and they do still make them. When you stick this in there, you've got no way to hold this pipe because it's threaded. You don't want to get a pair of pliers and clamp on there. You'll ruin the threads in case you ever have to, for some reason, change this nut, which is very unlikely, but then you never know. What there is, there's these two notches, not notches, but what you call them, two teeth, and there's a special tool that's the size of this that you slide in there, and it grabs that thing, so as you're tightening this nut down, this pipe doesn't turn. Now if you wanted to make one, what you could do is you could just get a piece of this pipe, then you can cut a couple of notches to hold against that, because you'll probably only be able to use this thing maybe once or twice, but it should be enough. If you've got a new gasket, it should be enough to where this gasket should seal well enough. Okay, you can see that we're just barely going to catch on to it, but that's good enough. And so what we'll do now, we're going to use now you don't want to use Vaseline or anything on this rubber. They've got some grease, or you can use dishwashing soap and water put on there where it'll tighten up really well. And this is where you need this wrench. Oh, man. And you want to make sure you get it tight enough to where you think it feels really well. Okay, we've got her tight. All we got to do, okay, and then move this around to make sure you can't pull that out. If that thing's loose anywhere, it's going to leak. Okay, now we can still use this piece. We just have to cut off the end if it's long enough to go up to the wall. So now we've got this ready. Okay, it's the same thing with the tank. We need to get the that nut off of there. Don't clean this washer up really good. Now we need a block of wood to put across here so we can knock this out. This standpipe usually comes attached to this already, but evidently it's gotten broke off. But all we need on this is just this, if I can get it off without tearing it up, all we need is this rubber washer on here, this one right here, and this would go in to the inside just like this. But you make sure that when you get it fully tightened up, that this is facing the right way. But if you wanted to, you could put some plumber's putty around this. That rubber washer is a good enough seal to hold it. Okay, you want to make sure you put your cardboard washer underneath this nut. Okay. This is the old ball cock. And oh boy, these things were a marvel. But they're basically the same thing today. It's just everything's plastic. Usually the plumber has the flange set to the floor because he's got the rough end from the wall out to where it's supposed to go. And so we're kind of set there. We can't really move it around. So we just set the commode right there where the floor flange is. And then from there, then we deal with the tank. Okay, now that we've pretty much got our tanks, our bowl set, this pipe is going to come, you know, at length plenty long enough to where you're going to have to cut it off. And as far as going up, then if you know, it just depends. There's not going to be much more to the top of it, but there will be a little. And this is in case you want to extend it up with another piece of pipe going up the wall. In other words, the tank's going to be set a lot higher than normal. But in any case, so now what we need to do is we need to figure out our distance from the back of the wall to the center of our pipe.